really there's kind of three main topics because kind of titled what in the world is going on, what's happening to our world. And on Thursday, we look more at the idea of the ceasefire and the prospect for peace. Some of the hidden things, some of the hidden pitfalls in it. Today, I'm going to just take a little bit of time on that, and then there's two other main sections in terms of, and I've entitled them, Why Should You Be Concerned? I've taken a collection of news things, and maybe in terms of the big things would be this. Number one, the world is actually trying to force Israel into a peace situation, but they're doing it with the arch enemies of Israel and the enemies that God said would exist in the end time. I think it's important for us to know that, because this way, when we see it stalling, fluttering, and remember, we looked at all the peace proposals that have been made, and you could write failure. Why? Because it's just, as someone said, it's impossible to make peace in the Middle East because they've been perpetual enemies. There will be a time God will do it. It's called the Millennial Kingdom, but in the meantime, we continue to search for it. The second topic I want to talk about really has to do with AI. A lot has been said about AI, but I want to give some examples of AI and some of the recent quotes, even by a man who's invested in it. He's a billionaire. And he's given lectures on the fact that the Antichrist can use AI, and this guy's promoting it. He's a Jew, a billionaire, and a homosexual. Great combination. And then the last one, I'm going to talk more about religion. What is all this doing to religious values, beliefs, and so on? So those are the three big topics, and we'll kind of start from there. Remember last time we talked about the idea of peace and safety, what's taking place. And of course, we've seen that God has been accurate in depicting all the nations that stood against Israel. And the Bible talks about the last days. It talks about the fact there'll be a 10-nation federation, similar to what I think the United Nations has drawn the world into. But it also talks about two passages that I want to have you keep in your mind. One is the one in Zechariah chapter 12. He says, Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judea and Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone. All people that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the world be gathered together against it. More and more I see the nations gathering together against Israel. And God warns them, you know what? It's not just a judgment for Israel, it's a judgment for the nations. So Jerusalem is a focal point, and that's what we're looking at in the headlines today. The second one is in Joel chapter 3. And in Joel chapter 3, he talks about the fact that the land is God's, and then he warns them not to divide the land. And so we've been through a week where we're being told, okay, we're going to maybe divide Gaza up, and we're going to have a Palestinian part, we're going to have an Israeli part, we're going to have a place where Hamas. And have you ever seen such confusion? The Bible says, don't divide the land. Next, we just had our president say to Israel, no, don't annex Samaria and Judea. What do you mean annex them? They've been part of Israel since the days of David. So what do you mean don't annex them? And so here we're trying to divide the land. So I think those are some passages. I know you're familiar with them, but I just want to put them in the front part of your mind. So they'll say peace and safety, sudden destruction. They'll say Jerusalem is a focal point. Anyone who tries to grab it when it's not grabbable, God's going to judge them in the land. Watch out for dividing the land. So with that in mind, let's see if I can go to our next slide. Remember, we looked at our chart. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but we're at the end of the blue circle, the church age. The next scheduled event, I think, by God is the rapture. We're taken out of the earth scene. We're brought into the heavenly scene. And we disappear there until Christ brings us back at the end of the tribulation and the return of Christ. But in that period of time, there's that tribulation period. And many of the events we're watching, I think, actually prelude to what's going to take place in that tribulation time. Now, we've watched the ceasefire. And notice I don't say it's brought eternal peace, enduring peace yet. We can't even get the ceasefire agreed on. The first 3 points out of 20 or 21, depending on how you count them, we haven't been able like that. But I think it's interesting because there's several people who are Israelis who are really part of the coalition that keeps Netanyahu in place. Take about 30 seconds to describe. In Israel, it's not kind of a two-party system. It's probably a dozen parties. And what a leader does, like Netanyahu, he tries to bring together a majority out of these dozen parties. And so each of these men might bring 6 or 8 people, or a big one might have 30, but these have 6 or 8. But without the people that follow these two men, very conservative, and I'm not saying I agree with them all the time, but I probably agree with them more than I disagree with them. They're very conservative. They're not the Orthodox Jew. They're not the Hasidic Jew, but they're very Orthodox. And so here's one, and he says, a morning of joy, relief, and also deep shame. Right-wing leaders express mixed feelings over the Gaza peace agreement. This man is one, and he's threatened several times to pull his coalition out, which would dethrone Netanyahu. And here's his concern. He said, we were on the verge of eliminating Hamas. We were stopped. We were stopped because we wanted the hostages out. We agree with that. We think God, we think Trump, we think anyone who helped get them out. We still have 14 left. And he said, it's a deep feeling of shame. Why? We were so close to winning. Another fellow, you see him all the time, and his name is Ben Veer. To be honest, I kind of like Ben Veer, not because I agree with him all the time, but because he is one of the most determined people I know. But one of his quotes is this. I'm going to flip to here he says this. He said, the people that we released, he's talking about the 1,700 plus prisoners and another 250. And by the way, the group of them received $70 million when they returned home because they returned as heroes. And so they were actually paid as they were released. What did Israel get back? Well, instead of terrorists, they got back hostages, and many of them were dead. And some of them are still missing. So here's his quote. He says this. He said, I'm sitting here next to the list of terrorists being released. Baby killers, woman rapists, gentlemen, you would never release such people in the United States. And he goes on to make a wonderful point. Already, there's evidence of people that have been released that are going to Judea and Samaria. Do you think it's going to be peace? You see the concern of these people. Here he is. Israel is victorious, landlords of the Temple Mount. And so he goes there, he leads prayer. They've tried to arrest him. They've tried to do everything. They threaten him, but he does his thing. He says, we were the owners of the Temple Mount. Israel's far-right Ben business compound. And so I just want you to know that these are part of the reason that I think they're trying to hold the peace process accountable. And so that's one of the reasons it's stormy. I want to leave the Jewish point of view because there's another point of view that I really think is important. And it's Qatar. Qatar. The headline shocked me. I'm going to be honest, it shocked me. New Qatar Air Force facility to be built in Idaho. Now here we are making an agreement with Qatar. We're going to let them land in our country. We're going to give them a foothold in our area. And I don't know that Qatar really is worthy. So here we go. Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood funding higher education in the United States. The donations, all of them linked to anti-Jewish, anti-democracy values, unbelievable. And we can even find that Qatar and China are pouring billions into the elite universities. Now you're going to think I'm anti-education, and there's some days I am. Not because I'm against getting an education, I'm against what the power that universities have and the fact that they're uncontrolled. I think the best way to explain this to you is here is a clip, a minute or two long. I want you to see one thing. I want you to see the amount of money that's funneled through Qatar. And we can trace this money to China, we can trace it to the Muslim Brotherhood, and we can trace it even to Iran. Now, none of those people I mentioned, I think, are worthy people. And so why do they have such influence? Then the second part of it is not just the money. And if I were to have one caution, it's this. I think this administration is more interested in the money and making business deals and securing AI contracts than it is the long-range prosperity and values of America. That's my summary of it. You can disagree. The second thing I want you to see is the message that these professors that they've hired at the university, you'll hear them talk about destroying America. They actually say destroy America. So let's listen to this video.
Over $100 billion in undocumented funds going from Qatar, i.e. the Muslim Brotherhood, to American universities. We found $10 billion at Cornell, $1.3 billion at Texas A&M, Brown University. We found $1 billion in one program called the Choices Program, led by a Professor Bartov, Omer Bartov, who's a scholar of genocide, who's now arguing that Israel is committing a genocide. Interestingly enough, he's running this project with about $1 billion from the Qataris, and they're creating curriculum for over 8,000 schools across the country, erasing minorities from the Middle East, erasing Jewish presence from the Middle East, erasing Christian presence from the Middle East, and inculcating children across the United States in this anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, anti-democratic curriculum. So here we have a regime swimming in money that is committed to the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, which seeks to replace democracy, to destroy democracy. And Islam is a spiritual oath to the Muslim Brotherhood. Yusuf Qaradawi, who was the spiritual head of the Brotherhood for many years, always preached that the true believer, the true Muslim, is obligated to complete the work of Hitler. This character was welcomed by the British establishment, and he helped to create, he was the founding director of Islamic Studies in my alma mater at Oxford University, welcomed into, the upper echelons of, the British establishment. So is it any wonder that Middle East Studies at Oxford or Islamic Studies at Oxford, these, very important institutions, are turning out apologists for the Muslim Brotherhood, apologists for Hamas, apologists for the Iranian revolutionary regime at places like Oxford, at Yale, and other centers. We estimate that they're playing with over $1 trillion in assets to invest in Western institutions to influence Western society.
Is also fighting for your liberation. Zionism is white supremacy.
And sometimes revolutionary essential. We actually need to crash the US settler state. We have to struggle to crash things here. And my students were very, very clear about this. We have to struggle for indigenous sovereignty, right?
I seek to dismantle the United States. I hope you seek to dismantle the United States. And if that isn't your politics, okay? I speak as if everybody has this commitment. And the thing is that you should listen to indigenous people.
Wow. You see what I'm saying? To dismantle the United States? Now, everyone's afraid to speak out against them because they have $1 trillion+ and they do dirty work behind the scenes. I understand that. But you know what? We either side with the truth or we have to side with the current flow of things. These are important aspects. They fit into this overall deal because the peace, ceasefire, enduring peace that everyone bragged about with all these nations, of the 35 countries, most of them, less than a month or two before they signed the treaty, were giving threatening outcries against Israel. So is it really a coalition of people for peace, or is it just another way to maybe strong arm Israel? Okay, so much can be said about that, but I think you get the idea. I wanted to put that in there because, so we've looked at the peace proposal, it's fragile. We looked at the enemies, they're growing. The next thing is, should you be concerned? And I want to switch to the whole idea of AI. Not being opposed to technology, I'm all for technology. Matter of fact, we're trying to figure out good ways, proper ways to use AI. I use AI on some of the things that I do. But you know what? I've also found out you got to put in there, okay, here's my point of view, and they can come back with a completely different report. You say, I want it from a Christian point of view. I want it from a Jewish point of view. And wow, it's incredible. So let's talk about why we should be concerned. And one of those reasons is this man, Tony Blair. Now, his thing is, he says, now is the time to embrace digital IDs. And Larry Edison, he's contributed over $300 million to Tony Blair. I'm gonna quote Larry Ellison several times. His view of police, his view of AI in the government, his view of AI in the world. $300 million to Tony Blair. Tony Blair is a globalist. And to my shock, when they began talking about, okay, the new Gaza plan, who are the two people that were put in charge of it? One is Donald Trump, and one is Tony Blair. Wow. I don't know that I want the President of the United States as chairman of the board over the Gaza area. It seems like he should be President of America and leave Gaza alone. There's surely other people that can handle it, but here's Tony Blair. And by the way, he's been a lobbyist for his tech solutions, but isn't it interesting that his administration in the United Kingdom was an absolute total failure? Failure. Why would we bring someone like that to the table and put him in a very prominent positions? But here's his gift. His gift is he's a globalist, and he brings in big money, and he's a technologist. In other words, he wants everything to be run with AI. Here's a great example of what I'm talking about. This is from the United Kingdom. Came out less than a month ago. They passed what's called the BritCard wallet. And on there, it talks about, whether you're a permanent worker or whether you're over 18 and so on like that. And by their own words, they say this, that if you don't have a BritCard ID, digital ID, your pay, first of all, you may have a hard time finding a job. If you do get a job, then they say your salary, your pay could be less, up to 30% less until you get your digital ID. I think it's coming. Matter of fact, I think I remember reading in the Bible, Revelation 13, that the Antichrist said, you can't buy, sell, or trade unless you have the code. We're watching it take place, and I think this month was a major step toward that. Now, here's an article, came out, I think, less than a week ago, October 23rd. Let's see, look at the date here. Inside the Digital Cage, the rise of a world that tracks everyone and everything. This is unbelievable. I'm going to stand up because I want to read. I want to make sure you see what I'm talking about here. Now, with the artificial intelligence scanning our posts, our moods, notice that our moods, our online discussions, even our movement in real time, health has become the perfect Trojan horse. Under the banner of safety, prevention, pandemic preparedness, we are constructing a system that knows not only who is sick, but who might be, and eventually who might think the wrong thing. That's where I'm concerned. They continue to talk to me about, okay, this is so good because it's going to preserve your health. Yeah, but you see, it's set up not just to preserve your health, it's set up to try to influence you, and it also plans to punish you for when you don't think the right thing. Next idea. Here he is, Larry Ellison. And Larry Ellison has some very unusual things to say. Listen to his video on police.
Their best behavior. because we're constantly reporting, watching, recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car or someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras, it's AI that's looking at the camera. No, you can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's gonna be an event that's immediately, an alarm's gonna go off, it's gonna be, and we're gonna have supervision. I know every police officer is gonna be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing we have drones. If there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop, a drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's every reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. And it's very, very simple. And then new generation of autonomous drones.
Well, you can see he thinks it's the solution to everything. And I'm not opposed to the police using it. I'm just saying it's one more step that will make an antichrist, because eventually he's going to gain control of AI. Matter of fact, Elon Musk said this: my worry is not AI, my worry is who controls AI. And he's among several others who say the same thing. There's another aspect of this that I think is important for us to think about, and AI workers are putting in 100-hour work weeks to win new tech arms race. Yeah, there's an incredible race. So we can say, okay, let's shut it down in America. That doesn't solve the problem. This is going on in Russia. It's going on for sure in China. It's going on in other countries. It's just that the United States, China, and Russia are miles ahead of everybody else, and probably China's ahead of everyone, to be honest. Now, in the tech arms race, I'm hoping America wins. Okay, the survival of us, naturally speaking, probably depends on this. But do you see, it's also for the idea not just of monitoring your safety, but it's also the idea of controlling the technology that will be war-bearing. That's a very important subject here. Here's another idea that you should be aware of, and this is Josh Haley, senator, I think from Iowa, if I remember right. And he talks about how AI can eliminate half the entry-level white-collar jobs. Listen to this clip.
Entry-level white-collar jobs will be gone in the next 5 years. Let me say that again. Half of entry-level white-collar jobs gone in the next 5 years.
Wow, and then it goes on to give some of the details. Think about that. And so, you know what? Your ability to be hired and is going to depend on who controls the AI and the hiring system. I'm going to leave that. I want to go to the White House. Remember, we had a great day when we were celebrating.
Technology CEOs, and in the case of Larry Ellison, is well beyond technology, sort of CEO of everything. He's an amazing man, an amazing business person. But to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America. As you know, there's great competition for AI and other things, and they're coming in at the highest level. We're joined by Oracle Executive Chairman Larry Ellison, SoftBank CEO, my friend Masa Yoshi-san, and CEO of OpenAI, and I would say by far the leading expert based on everything I read, Sam Altman. So that's great that you're coming in together. That's a massive group of talent and money. Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're gonna hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States and very, very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
Okay, I'm going to stop him there. He goes on to, okay, four billionaires are standing there, all pushing AI technology. Altogether, they're pledging more than $1 trillion. And now we go back to Larry Ellison. You're going to think I'm picking on him, and but he loves saying, okay, it has to do with health. It does some, but I'm going to cut his video short because we're pressed for time. I think I've got 9 or 10 minutes. I've got a couple other scoops I want to show you, but here we go.
All of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do it using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
Oh, wow. Now, I'm probably a little more sensitive about this than some people are, but I don't know if I want to try a vaccine that's only been out 48 hours and has not been tested. Good grief. We used to at least test it on a rat or a hamster, but now we're going to, do I trust AI enough to make a vaccine for myself? No. I'm a little suspicious about vaccines at this stage of my life. Matter of fact, I was prohibited from seeing my great-grandson for 2 or 3 weeks because Sharon and I didn't take the right vaccines. And so I could go in the adjacent room. One of my teachers had a baby born the same day that my great-grandson. I could go, I could see him, I could hold him, but I couldn't see him. I call him King Barry because, and finally, after a week or two, they took King Barry on a ride through my driveway. I couldn't see him because I still didn't have that vaccine. I could wave to the king as he drove by. Now, since then, I've been able to hold him and so on. But this, I don't trust all of the medicine that comes out, especially if it's going to be AI, because who's controlling AI? You see, Bill Gates is one who wants vaccines to eliminate 1/4 of the population. And speaking of Tony Blair, a globalist, he also is for selection process, maybe even using vaccines. Folks, I think this is dangerous. The Antichrist eventually will control it. Yeah. Listen to this one. Here's another aspect of it.
The United States being such an unmitigated disaster as it currently is. Okay, so there is the opportunity, and within that opportunity, I would suggest 3 things. The first one, we have to have a global asset registry. We have to know who has the freaking money. And if they don't want you to know that they have the money or how much money they have, chances are they got it from somewhere they shouldn't have gotten it from, and they're spending it on something they should be spending it on. So number 1, the global asset registry. Number 2, we have to facilitate an international conversation about what is enough. And that if there is a number that is enough, there is a number that is too much. We believe that money becomes power, and when power threatens your democracy, you have to take away power, and the only way to take away that power is by taking away the money. And the only way to take away the money is taxation. So number three, forget progressivity. All right? Forget progressivity, and let's by progressivity, you mean taxation that makes people less rich. This is not about a 2% wealth tax when somebody's getting a higher return than that. This is about taxation in order to preserve human freedom.
My goodness. Now you saw above her head, World Bank Group. These are the haves. These are the people that have money, power, control. And what they're saying is we want more. And so we have an opportunity as things are at this particular point to maybe gain more control. And so what we want to do is we want to do digital ID, digital money, and we want to be able to control that because these people that have billions of dollars, they do bad things. If they were really concerned, why did they stop Qatar? Our other trillion-dollar business, George Soros. I mean, but no, what they want to do, they're going to pick on citizens. It's the way to control it. Look, the reason why I'm not big on the health portion of this is because I don't think they should be able to control my health. The reason I'm not big for this, I don't think they should be able to control money. I don't think they should be able to control power. You see, everything they put their hands on, they control. Education is a great example. They control these professors. These professors work for them. And so like Elon Musk says, whoever has that power, they're gonna eventually control the world. Later, not in this section, I think, if I remember right, I'm gonna show you the picture of a man, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is again one of the inventors of a AI company, a billionaire, a Jew, a homosexual. And he has lectures that I can't attend because they're too expensive, but he's going to talk about AI and the Antichrist. And this man who actually is in this business believes that AI is the tool that the Antichrist will use. And you got to pay for his seminar several thousand. I can't remember what the cheapest one is. It's tens of thousands of dollars. And he talks openly about it. I don't know if I have him up here next or not. No, I've got another one. Let's look at this one. I've got at least one more. Oh, no, you know what? I'm going to skip this one. This one is another Jew, Noah Harara. He's going to talk about I'm going to play him 10 seconds.
Social credit system is basically an expansion of money or a new kind of money. You know, when you think about traditional money, gold coins, dollars, even bitcoins, they give value only to specific parts of human reality. Right. Some things you do, like you work, you get money, you want to buy airline ticket, you pay money, but other things, you go visit your friends, you go visit your grandmother, even if you throw trash in the street, this is no monetary value. The idea of the social credit is to monetize everything, to give value to every single thing you do in life. And this is your score. So even things that traditionally were not about money, they're about reputation or status. Suddenly you get precise points for them. And also anything you want to do, you need to use your social credit.
Okay, so I'm going to go. So yeah, they're going to control your social credits. In other words, they want to control your values. I'm for not throwing trash in the street, but I don't think we need a social credit system. Here we go, behind the headlines. Billionaire and the Antichrist, Peter Thiel, believes that the world is hurling toward an apocalypse crisis, and his beliefs are quietly reshaping U.S. policies. Yeah, he does these seminars, and again, he's talking about how that the Antichrist could take over the world using this whole idea of AI. Unbelievable. 3 or 4, I could spend half our program just on these things. I just introduce you to that idea. Now, one other thing, and then we're going to be done with this session. How China took over the world's rare earth industry. And a great article, Wall Street Journal. But have you noticed this? That we just recently bought $20 billion of pesos that we said they're devalued. We're going to hang on to these pesos that are devalued. and we're hoping they're going to come up, but we did it because the guy in Argentina is our friend, and we need rare earth minerals out of Argentina. By the way, do you understand that the United States has incredible rare earth minerals in Utah, South Dakota, North Dakota, I think Colorado, I don't even know. I don't think Kansas. We have dust, we have wheat. But why aren't we mining our own? Why are we always bailing some country out or working a deal? First thing President Trump did on the recent China trip was to do a rare earth mineral deal. You want to know why? Because right now there's legislation that says we can't mine our own rare earth minerals, and that's the key to controlling technology. Elon Musk, he gambles $1 billion in Memphis, why? To catch up on AI. I mean, this is incredible business. Well, I'm going to stop there. Yeah, there's, now I'll explain this one. Here's another concern, not just AI, but this is a house, it's called our biggest and best conference. And this conference was actually how that they can now identify homosexual couples that want to become parents, gay singles, couples dreaming of becoming parents. And with a new improved curriculum, it's an amazing way that we can link them together either for buying children or producing children. Wow, we should be concerned, shouldn't we? Well, are you ready? And so we'll stop our second session here, and we look forward to the final session.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time we have today to remember our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Just to hear things going on in the world, we just thank you that you're over all things and that you have a plan and that we could trust you through all the ups and downs. We don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes this world could be scary, but we know we could trust in you. That you hold us in the palm of your hand. So we just